Hey folks, in today's video, I want to talk about how I paid for all this stuff. You just saw the last 6 videos we posted, which was a 6-part series that was a full tour of this homestead. And I've been reading the comments, and there's a number of people that are going, how does he pay for all this stuff? How dare you? How dare you make money and pay for all this stuff? And I want to just say, I want to address this, and I want to explain how this was possible. First of all, right out of the gate, don't compare yourself to me. Compare yourself only to who you were yesterday. If you compare yourself to me, you're never going to seem like you're going to get anywhere. And I'll tell you what, when I started all this stuff, I was comparing myself to other people. I was looking at guys like Jack Spirko, a friend of mine, Ben Falk, great permaculture designer, Jeff Lawton, Bill Mollison, all these greats with their huge homesteads. And I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm so far behind. How am I going to get there? That's just the problem, is everybody's on their own timeline. If you sit there and compare yourself to me, it's never going to seem like it's good enough. You're never going to seem like you're there. So stop. Just take what you can. Take what you can from inspiration, from what you see here, and leave the rest. The rest of it doesn't matter. I'm showing all kinds of stuff on this homestead. And when I started this, I had a lot of ambitions, and I'm still working through the list. You know, it takes a lot to do this, and a lot of people who get started, they just want to do it all at once. But once you get started, you realize that's impossible. You have to kind of do one thing at a time and just keep going through. So one thing I'll say is what I'm doing right now has literally been a dream of mine since I was 16 years old. I'm 43 years old, and it's been a long time coming to get here. When I started this whole journey about 12 years ago, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to live off grid. I wanted to grow all my own food. I wanted to produce my own energy. I've for the very longest time been troubled by the fact that we have to go out, make money, pay taxes just to take care of ourselves. So philosophically, that's always bothered me. And so I've always had this dream of being able to just live without needing the system. Now, I'm not proclaiming that we don't use the system in any way, because obviously we do. Look at all these things that come from the system. We set them up. But the point I'm trying to make here is this has been a very, very long goal of mine. And when I started my farm in 2009, at the time, I had no means to do something like this whatsoever. I started my business back then on $7,000. I started Green City Acres on $7,000. And it grew every year, and it turned into all kinds of other opportunities, but eventually leading me here. This was always my goal. I started urban farming because I couldn't afford to buy land. It didn't really make sense for me to lease land outside of the city. I was in the city, and so urban farming at that time was me utilizing what resources I had. And that was, hey, so-and-so is going to lend me a front or backyard, and I can start. And my whole plan at that time was to just get skills. And then if I can learn a skill base like farming, and then I can use that to make money, and I can work towards my dream of being off grid, I'm accomplishing 2 things. I'm building the skill base that I need to do something like this, and I'm also making money at the same time. So instead of going to a job that I hated to work for my dream, I can do a job that I like that also couples into achieving my dream. So another thing that helped me get to where I am today is, as I worked in my business, which when I started was just farming, but then it turned into other things. So it started with farming. I wrote a book. I started a YouTube channel. I built my first online course. I started doing tours around the world. I started consulting, public speaking, things like this, then eventually starting from the field, and then Freedom Farmers and all these other endeavors. The thing that I've always kept in mind throughout this whole process is that you have to work in a business to get a business functioning, and I did the same thing with the farm. I did this with every other enterprise I've been in. You have to work in the business to get the business rolling. Then, once you can automate some things, as in you can hire somebody to replace you in some way or another, starting at the bottom of the sort of hierarchy of tasks, and then working your way up, then you can work on the business. And I've done that consistently throughout all the enterprises that I've been involved in, is I've got myself in a position where I can do the work to set the systems up, and then I can bring people in to help with those systems so that I can work on the big picture stuff. And that's what I'm good at, is big picture. And I've actually done the exact same thing with this homestead, in that I get things started and then I bring people in to replace the things that I no longer need to do. Then I can work on the big picture stuff. And so that's what's been really instrumental in how I've done all this, is I've been able to automate and pass on certain tasks so that I can always keep my mind on the big picture. The thing that really funded all of this, and I'm not going to tell you guys numbers because there's no upside for me sharing numbers like this on a public platform to YouTube. There's just no point. I know that it might satiate the question that a lot of people have is, well, how much does all this cost? I really need to know. That actually, the number's not really going to help you, because anybody can do something like this. It's the scale at which you're going to do it which really matters. If I wanted to establish food, water, energy, and shelter on this property and only focus on those things, I don't need to build a 2,400 or 2,800 square foot house. I could have even just built this greenhouse, which cost about 50 grand, the one that we're in right now. And I could have just lived in the cabin and done all the other things and saved a significant amount of money. But I wanted to live in a nice house. I had the money to do so. We want to raise our kids in this house and spend the rest of our life here. It's a big goal that goes far above and beyond just food, water, energy, and shelter for the purpose of survival. But the way I actually paid for all this is I took a risk back in 2014. I was renting my home in Kelowna. And at that point, I wasn't really making much more than $20,000 a year clear. So, again, after all of my expenses, I would end up with about $20,000, which I still had to pay some taxes on. But I wasn't making a ton of money. My farm was profitable. My farm was making, 100 grand a year. But after I paid everybody else out, I still took about, call it a $50,000 salary, but I would still have things to spend on, and I would really only be left over with about $20,000. So when I say $20,000, I'm really talking about the net of the net, the net profit of the net profit. So I wasn't making a ton of money on paper, but I was able to get a mortgage. And at that time, the home that I was renting, which became the urban homestead that you've seen in hundreds of my videos, I was renting that home. And my landlord was really nice, and she let me do whatever we wanted. She loved the gardening. She let me set up a base of operations there. We're doing all of that. And she wanted to sell it, and so I was in this sort of shotgun position where she's basically saying, if you don't buy it, you got to move and somebody else is going to buy it. So I had to really get my shit together to buy that house, and it was very difficult because I didn't have a lot of income on paper. And what I mean by that is the paper you show the bank or the government. So I had to go through 5 different mortgage brokers to finally find somebody that would take a risk and take a mortgage with me. And so I mortgaged that home at the time. And I'll tell you what, at that time, I was concerned that the economy was going to shit the bed. Like, it could be tomorrow. We never know. But at the time, my dad even said to me, he's like, don't buy the house. You're crazy. The market's going to tank. But it didn't. And so I bought that house. I put about $200,000 of renovations into it over the course of 5 years. And that house more than doubled its value. So I sold that house and paid out the little bit of remaining mortgage on there. And I had a good amount of cash to come here and start this. That's really what paid for this. I mean, yes, I've had an okay career as an entrepreneur where I've made some money and I'm able to have a nice car and have some creature comforts. Though we're not rich, but I've been able to pay for some of those things. But ultimately, us selling our house in Kelowna and using that cash to fund this property was the biggest thing that did it. And I would say to anybody that's like, well, Curtis, you're above and beyond what the average person can do. Okay, fair enough. I won't deny that. But at the same time, most people, despite what your job is, have the ability to take on a mortgage. I'm not suggesting you do that, but most people have the ability to buy a piece of property low and sell it high. That doesn't really take anybody special to do something like that. That is very within the means of most people. So there's no doubt that money makes things happen faster. That's how ultimately I've been able to get this done, or to where we're at within the last 2 years. Really, we've only done 16 months of work on here, and that would be including winters. So, really it's probably 10 months of work that's been done to get to where we are. That's a fairly short period of time. And there's no question that money makes that happen faster. But I'll tell you what, I have a lot of friends who have a lot of money and who are very awake to what's going on, and they're rushing to do the same thing as I am. They're not getting here even as close to as fast, because the difference between a lot of these friends that I have that have money that want the same outcome is they don't have the skills. And the skills pay the bills. And what it comes down to ultimately is hard work and dedication. Like I said to you in the beginning of this video, I wanted to live this way since I was 16 years old. So I'm 43 now. That's a long time coming, working towards a particular goal. It wasn't really until I was about 30 years old where I really started to crystallize that goal and started to do things to get towards that. But the point being is that it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication and staying focused on a goal and constantly setting goals on the steps to that big goal that's got me here. Yes, the money has been a part of it. There's no question about it. But ultimately, it's your hard work and your dedication that are going to get you there. So if you guys found that video helpful, smash the like button. Leave a question or comment below. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Maybe you have a similar experience to where I'm coming from. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. And if you like my t-shirts, a lot of people ask me about my t-shirts. I've been making these and getting them printed. You can head over to curtis.freedomfarmers.com and you can buy any of these t-shirts that you've seen me wearing in a variety of different videos. All right, folks, see you in the next one. Check out my site, fromthefield.tv. It's where I post all my vlogs and the vast majority of all my content. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.